This video is sponsored by Wacom. I'm going to explain everything you need to know to get started with Explain Everything in under 10 minutes. Explain Everything was originally created for the iPad, but I am going to be showing the web version because I think that is accessible to more people. And I'm going to be using the Wacom Intuos writing tablet for any of the writing that I'll be doing on the screen. Everything that I share today is going to be on the free version of Explain Everything. So let's get started because I'm running out of time. When you get to explaineverything.com, just sign in. Even if you don't have an account, just go ahead and sign in with Google. Easiest way to do it. So let's start a new project. And when you start a new project, you can import a file like a picture or a PDF of your PowerPoint, a template, which includes all of these right here. But I like to start with a blank canvas. The first thing it asks you is if you want to enable your microphone. The only reason you would do this is if you're going to share this board with other people that are not in the same room and you want them to be able to hear you while you are on the shared board together. We'll talk about that when we get to that section, but for now I'm going to say mute microphone and join. So in this first case scenario, let's say you're going to be using Explain Everything in front of a live class, either in person or online. Here's how you might use it. In this example lesson, I'm going to be talking about sound and parts of the ear and how we hear. So I want to start out by bringing in a picture of the anatomy of the ear. And so if we look at the toolbar on the left, the very top one is Add Media. You'll also notice that there's some keyboard shortcuts there, like A to add media. I'm going to be moving between all my tools using keyboard shortcuts like A and V and D. And I recommend you do the same. It's going to be a lot faster than coming over here and clicking. So if I add media and I want to add a picture of the ear, it's not this picture thing. This is like take a picture with your webcam, but I have an existing image right here that I have on my computer and I can click on open. It takes me to the image editor asking if I want to crop or rotate or anything like that. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to import it as is. I'm going to click on done. Now it defaults to the hand tool or keyboard shortcut V. And with the hand tool, you can move it around, change the size, do whatever you need to, rotate it if you need to, and then put it where you want. So over here on the left, I've got the pen tool. The pen tool is like most pen tools. You can change your size. If you'd like to change a color or get a color that's not here, let's say I don't want a green, I want a purple. If you click on the green and then click again, and I don't see purple here, I can click on this plus sign to add the color that I want. And let's add this purple right here. So now I've got this purple. So in this live lesson with my students, I'm explaining that sound comes in through the ear canal and then hits our eardrum and our eardrum vibrates. If you want to undo any drawings, you can go down here to the undo or just do Command Z. And maybe I want to use the highlighter tool to highlight that sound comes through the ear canal before it hits our eardrums. Now, what's really cool is this eraser tool has 3 different modes of eraser. This first mode will erase the last thing that you drew. So notice that I drew the highlighter last, and so it's only erasing the highlighter. It is not erasing the pen from earlier. Let me undo that. Now, if I want to erase all of my drawings, like my highlighter and my pen, then I can do that with the second option. Now, if I want to erase everything, including the image, I can use this third option. Maybe I want to erase these words up here because I want to add them as I go. I can do that because these words were actually part of the image. I did not add these words myself. And so I think it's pretty cool that you've got so much flexibility with the eraser tool. Another unique feature is the cutout tool. It does not actually erase or cut out something, but it duplicates a portion of your screen. So maybe I want to duplicate this. I've got the cutout tool selected and I'm clicking and dragging right here. And I want to take this little section and I want to annotate it and talk about a few things about it that I don't want to clutter up the original image with. So maybe I pull out this cutout from here and I want students to know where this came from. So I'm going to add an arrow. I can go over to my shapes and arrow is going to be under the shape. It defaults to square. You can click on the arrow and then I want a purple arrow and I can click and drag from here to there to show, all right, so this is that section. And I want to label this section so students know what we're looking at here. So I can use the text tool right here, click and drag where I want my text to appear. And I'm just going to type in a closer look. And you can do pretty much all the word processing stuff when you highlight it that you can normally do in any word processor. If I want to change the font and the centering and make it bold, and then I can move it where I want. And then with my pen tool selected, I can annotate this and not clutter up my original image, and then point out that the stapes is the smallest bone in the entire body. So if I wanted to start deleting any of this, you don't want to use the eraser tool. That'll take too long, but they've got a delete tool, and you can click and drag a square over all the things that you want to delete. So if you just want to delete this section over here, you'll see it all gets highlighted, and you can hit the X and then it gets deleted. If you want to delete everything, of course, then you can just highlight it all and then hit delete. Now let's see how we can actually invite students to collaborate on this whiteboard with us. So I pulled in a picture of the ear again, and I erased the labels that were a part of the image using the eraser tool. And I want students to label this image collaboratively. But I also found another image that I want them to label that has the wavelength and shows how speakers are working and how they move the sound to the ear. Instead of taking a screenshot of my entire screen and then trying to crop out that little section, on a Mac, there's a shortcut where if you hold Shift, Control, Command, and then hit the number 4, it'll give you this little cursor, and then you can just say what you want to take a screenshot of by dragging a square. And so now, not only is this only taking a screenshot of this section, it also puts it on my clipboard. It's not on my desktop, and then I can come over here and then do Command V to paste it. And so now it's just that little section from the website. And I don't need to crop it or do anything. I'm just going to add it in there, and I'm going to move it over here. Let me add the parts that I want students to label real quick. Now, before I share this with my students, I want to make sure that they can't move stuff around. So first, I am going to click on this little eye, the inspector, and I am going to highlight everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it as background. So now when I go back to my hand tool, nothing can be moved. So now when I'm ready to invite my students, I click on this little button up here that has all of these letters, and then it'll say, okay, well, who has permission before you invite? Let's click on that, and it says anyone with the link can edit. It should default to that, but if it doesn't, click on this pencil and then say can edit, because you want them to be able to actually write and add stuff on there. So once you got that, click on this button again, and then you can copy this link right here. So let's see what the student view is going to look like. So on the right side is the student perspective, on the left side is the teacher perspective, and you can see that they're virtually the same. So maybe a student wants to zoom in, so they click on this zoom and pan, and then they zoom into this section. It's gonna tell them that they're trying to unfollow Tom Gibson, me, the teacher. All that means is that they are trying to look at a view that is different than the view that I had, which in this case is okay because we're not all looking at the same thing, but you see how it just now pulled it back to the view that I had, just to make sure that if the student wanted to make sure that they were seeing the same thing as me, they could do that. But I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to say unfollow Tom Gibson. So now the student is able to freely move about the canvas. And as this student starts to label the section, ear, canal, you'll notice on the left side, it just says explainer because this student is not signed in. Any students that are not signed in is just going to say explainer. If you want them to sign in, there is a button on the bottom that can sign in. But the downside is that students can delete anything that anyone, including the teacher, has written. So if I wrote the word amplitude and the student zoomed and panned on over, they could just go here and erase what I just wrote or what anybody else just put up on the whiteboard. The more people you have on this page, the more of a mess it potentially could become. And when I was looking it up, Even Explain Everything says it really works best with about 8 or less students. You can have up to 25, but you don't want a ton of people here, particularly if they're anonymous, because then everything just goes out the window sometimes if students are showing up anonymously. Back to the teacher view, Explain Everything does have a record feature, so you can record videos of you going through these lessons, but on the free plan, it is limited to 1 minute. And so I don't think that's really usable for most teachers, but using it live in class as well as collaborating with students, I think can be highly valuable. If you're building out a blended learning classroom of students watching videos and using interactive whiteboards, then check out this playlist that we have of all of our best blended classroom videos. We'll see you over in the playlist.